The night was quiet in the mountains. Sat on the wooden porch of her grandmother's old farmhouse, drinking tea and watching the stars. The autumn air was cold and she pulled her sweater around her shoulders. She had lived alone on this farm for 2 years now, ever since her grandmother passed away. It was a lonely life, but she liked it. The city had been too loud, too fast, too full of people who never stopped to breathe. Here in the mountains of Provence, she could hear herself think. Was a veterinarian. She had a small clinic in the town at the bottom of the mountain, but most of her work came to her. Farmers brought their sick animals. Hunters brought injured deer. Sometimes, children brought birds with broken wings. She fixed what she could. She buried what she could not. It was simple work, honest work. She was good at it. She finished her tea and stood up to go inside. That was when she saw it. A light appeared in the sky. It was bright, brighter than any star, and it was moving fast. At first, she thought it was a shooting star, but shooting stars did not leave trails of fire behind them. Shooting stars did not make the air shake with a sound like thunder. The light fell toward the mountain behind her farm. It disappeared behind the trees, and then the ground shook. A boom echoed through the valley, so loud that her dog started barking and would not stop. Stood very still. Her heart was beating fast. She should call someone, the police, the fire department, someone. But her phone had no signal. It never did this far up the mountain. She looked at the dark forest. Orange light flickered between the trees. Something was burning. She should stay inside. She should wait until morning. She should do the smart thing. Instead, she grabbed her flashlight and her medical bag and started walking toward the fire. The forest was dark and full of shadows. Moved carefully, stepping over roots and rocks. The smell of smoke grew stronger. The air became warm, then hot. She pushed through a line of bushes and stopped. A long scar had been torn through the forest. Trees were broken and burning. The ground was black and smoking. And at the end of the scar, half buried in the dirt, was something that did not belong on Earth. It was a ship, or what was left of one. The shape was strange, like nothing had ever seen. It was made of dark metal that reflected the firelight in strange colors. Parts of it were twisted and torn. Smoke poured from cracks in its surface. Approached slowly. Her legs were shaking, but she did not stop. She had to see. She had to know. The ship had a hole in its side, and through that hole she saw movement. Something was alive in there. Climbed through the opening. The inside of the ship was filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Warning lights flashed red. Strange symbols covered the walls. Everything was broken, sparking, dying. And on the floor she found him. He was tall, very tall. Even lying down, she could tell he was much bigger than any human. His skin was pale like stone. Dark blue lines ran across his face and down his neck like veins or tattoos. He wore armor that was black and silver, but the armor was shattered. Pieces of it lay scattered around him. Dark liquid pooled beneath his body. His blood. It was silver like metal. He was dying. She knew death. She had seen it in animals many times. She could see it in him now. Then he opened his eyes. He had 3 of them. They were gold, bright and burning like the sun. They looked at her with fear and confusion and pain. His hand moved. He was reaching for something on his belt, a weapon, saw the shape of it and understood. He was trying to protect himself. He thought she was a threat. But his hand was too weak. It fell back to his side. Knelt beside him. She could hear his breathing. It was wet and rough, the sound of lungs that were filling with fluid. She had heard that sound before in animals that had been hit by cars or attacked by other animals. It meant internal bleeding. It meant death if she did not act fast. "I am going to help you," she said. Her voice was calm and steady even though her heart was racing. "Do not fight me." The alien looked at her. His golden eyes were full of confusion. He did not understand her words, but he seemed to understand her tone. His body relaxed just a little. Opened her medical bag. She did not know his biology. She did not know where his organs were or what medicine would help him, but she knew wounds. She knew bleeding. She knew that pressure stopped blood loss and that keeping someone warm helped them survive. She started working. The alien watched her with those strange golden eyes. He said something in a language that sounded like wind moving through broken glass. She did not understand the words, but she heard the question in his voice. Why? Why was she helping him? She did not answer. There was no time for philosophy. She had to stop the bleeding first. She had to keep him alive. Later, she would wonder about that moment. Later, she would ask herself why she had not run away, why she had not been afraid, why she had chosen to help a creature from another world, a soldier covered in weapons and armor, a being that could have killed her with one hand. But in that moment, she did not think about any of that. She only saw a living thing that was dying, and she could not walk away from that. She had never been able to walk away from that. It took her 3 hours to move him. He was heavy, much heavier than a human his size should be. She used a wooden cart from her farm, the one she used to carry feed for the animals. She dragged him through the forest, through the fields, and into her house. She laid him on the floor of her living room. She cleaned his wounds as best as she could. She wrapped bandages around his chest where the bleeding was worst. She covered him with blankets to keep him warm. Then she sat down beside him and waited. The alien soldier lay still, his breathing slow and shallow. The fire in the forest was burning itself out. The sun was beginning to rise over the mountains. Did not know what she had brought into her home. She did not know what it would mean for her life, for her world, for everything. She only knew that he was alive. And for now, that was enough. The first week was the hardest. Did not sleep more than a few hours at a time. She sat beside the alien soldier, watching his chest rise and fall, listening to the strange double beat of his heart. He had 2 hearts. She discovered this when she pressed her hand to his chest to check his pulse. 2 hearts beating together, fighting to keep him alive. His blood was silver and smelled like copper. His bones were denser than human bones. His skin was tough like leather but smooth to the touch. Everything about him was different and yet somehow familiar. He was still a body. He was still made of flesh and blood, even if that flesh was and that blood was silver. Used everything she knew. She had spent years studying animal medicine. She had treated dogs and cats and cows and horses. She had learned that all living things, no matter how different they looked, had the same basic needs. They needed food and water. They needed rest. They needed their wounds to be clean and their infections to be fought. She did not have medicine for aliens, but she had antiseptic and bandages and antibiotics that she used on animals. She did not know if they would work. She used them anyway. She had no other choice. The alien developed a fever on the 3rd day. His skin became hot to the touch and he shook with chills. He spoke in his sleep, words in that strange language that sounded like breaking glass. His golden eyes moved beneath his closed eyelids. He was dreaming, or maybe he was remembering. Cooled his skin with wet towels. She dripped water into his mouth. She talked to him, even though he could not understand her. She told him about her grandmother, about the farm, about the animals she had saved and the ones she had lost. She talked because the silence was too heavy, and because she hoped that the sound of her voice might give him something to hold on to. On the 5th day, his fever broke. He opened his eyes and looked at her clearly for the first time. "Water," he said. Stared at him. The word was rough and broken, but it was her language. He was speaking Korean. She brought him water. He drank slowly, his 3 golden eyes never leaving her face. "How?" she asked. "How do you know my language?" He touched a spot behind his ear. There was something there under his skin, a small bump like a chip. "Translation device," he said. His voice was deep and rough. "It learns, takes time." Sat back and let out a long breath. Communication. They could communicate. That changed everything. "What is your name?" she asked. The alien was quiet for a moment. He said finally, "My name is—" "I am," he repeated. The word sounded strange in his voice but not unpleasant. He looked around the room, at the wooden walls and the old furniture and the photographs on the shelf. "Where am I?" "My home, my farm in the mountains." "What planet?" "Earth." Closed his eyes, something passed across his face. Relief, disappointment, she could not tell. "I crashed," he said. "Yes, I found you in the forest. Your ship is destroyed." "I know." He tried to sit up and fell back with a grunt of pain. His hand went to his chest, where the worst of his wounds were hidden beneath layers of bandages. "Do not move," said firmly. "You are still very hurt, you need to rest." Looked at her, his golden eyes were hard to read. "Why did you help me?" It was the question he had asked before, in his own language. The question she had not answered. "You were dying," she said simply. "I could not leave you to die." "You do not know me. I am not your kind. I could be dangerous." "Are you dangerous?" Was silent. "You are a soldier," said. It was not a question. She had seen the weapons on his belt, the armor on his body, the scars on his skin. "You fight in wars." "Yes." "Are you going to hurt me?" Again silence, then slowly shook his head. "No, I will not hurt you." "Then I have no reason to fear you." Stared at her like she was something he had never seen before, something impossible, something that did not make sense. The weeks passed slowly, grew stronger, but his recovery was hard. His wounds were deep, and his body was tired from years of war. He slept for many hours each day, and when he was awake, he was often quiet, watching with those golden eyes as she moved around the house. She learned things about him. She learned that he was old, older than any human could be. His people lived for hundreds of years. She learned that he had been a soldier for most of his life, fighting in a war that had spread across 100 star systems. She learned that he had been running, fleeing from something, when his ship was hit and he crashed on Earth. She did not ask what he was running from. She could see that the memory was painful. She gave him space. She gave him time. In return, learned about her. He learned about her grandmother who had raised her after her parents died. He learned about her clinic in the town where she helped sick animals. He learned about her loneliness, which she did not speak about but which he could see in the quiet way she moved through her empty house. One evening, as was changing his bandages, spoke. "In my world," he said, "we do not help the dying." Looked up at him. "What do you mean?" "If a soldier is wounded, if they cannot fight, we leave them. Resources are not wasted on those who will not survive. It is the way of the hegemony, the way I was taught." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she continued, wrapping the bandage around his chest. "That sounds very sad," she said. "It is efficient." "It is sad," she repeated. "Everyone deserves a chance to live. Everyone deserves someone who will fight for them." Looked at her. His golden eyes were soft now, softer than she had ever seen them. "You fought for me," he said. "You did not know me. You had no reason to believe I would survive, but you fought for me anyway." Tied off the bandage and sat back. "Yes, I did." "Why?" She thought about the question. She thought about all the animals she had saved, and all the ones she had lost. She thought about her grandmother who had taught her that every life was precious, that kindness was never wasted, that helping others was the most important thing a person could do. "Because that is who I am," she said finally. "That is who I choose to be." Did not respond, but something changed in his eyes, something shifted. He had been taught that compassion was weakness. He had been taught that mercy was a waste of resources. He had been taught that only the strong survived and the weak were left behind. But here was this small human woman who had saved his life, who had fought for him when no one else would, who had shown him kindness without asking for anything in return. Maybe, he thought, everything he had been taught was wrong. Maybe there was another way to live. By the second month, could walk again. He was still weak, still healing, but his body was strong and his will was stronger. He began to move around the farm, watching as she worked. He watched her feed the chickens in the morning. He watched her tend to the vegetable garden in the afternoon. He watched her sit on the porch in the evening, drinking tea and looking at the stars. She lived a simple life, a quiet life, so different from everything he had ever known. One morning, a farmer came to the house with a sick dog. The animal was old and thin, and it could not stand on its own. Watched from the window as examined it. She was gentle with the dog, speaking softly, touching it carefully. The farmer was worried, packing back and forth, asking if his dog would live. Worked for an hour. She gave the dog medicine. She cleaned its wounds. She made the farmer promise to bring it back in 3 days. When the farmer left, carrying his dog carefully in his arms, came back inside. She looked tired, but there was a small smile on her face. "Will it live?" asked. "I think so. He is old, but he is strong. He wants to live." "You care about them, the animals, the people." Washed her hands in the sink. "Of course I care. That is my job." "No," said. "It is more than a job. I have seen people do jobs. They do what is required and nothing more. You do more, you give more." Turned to look at him. "Is that strange to you?" Thought about the hegemony. He thought about the commanders who sent soldiers to die without a second thought. He thought about the medics who calculated whether a wounded soldier was worth saving based on their rank and usefulness. He thought about a system that measured the value of life in terms of efficiency and resources. "Yes," he said, "it is very strange." Dried her hands and sat down at the table across from him. "Tell me about your world. Tell me about the war." For a long moment did not speak. The memories were heavy, pressing down on him like stones, but waited. She did not push. She did not demand. She simply sat there, patient and quiet, giving him the space to speak when he was ready. And slowly he began to talk. He told her about a planet called. It had been beautiful once, covered in forests and mountains and great silver oceans. His people had lived there for thousands of years, building cities and raising families and looking up at the stars with wonder. Then the hegemony came. The hegemony was an empire that stretched across the galaxy. They wanted resources. They wanted soldiers. They wanted control. When the people of refused to submit, the hegemony burned their cities. They poisoned their oceans. They killed millions. Had been young then, just a child. He watched his parents die in the fires. He watched his home turn to ash. And when the hegemony soldiers came for the survivors, he did not fight. He was too small, too weak, too afraid. They took him and the other children. They trained them to be soldiers. They taught them to fight, to kill, to obey without question. They taught them that compassion was weakness, that mercy was failure, that the only thing that mattered was victory. Became one of their best soldiers. He fought in 100 battles on 100 worlds. He killed more enemies than he could count. He earned medals and honors and the respect of his commanders. But he never forgot. He never forgot the fire and the screaming and the smell of death. And as the years passed, he began to wonder if there was any difference between him and the soldiers who had destroyed his home. "I became the thing I hated," he said quietly. "I became a monster." Listened without speaking. Her eyes were soft, full of something did not recognize. It was not pity. It was not judgment. It was something else, something warmer. "You survived," she said. "You did what you had to do to stay alive. That does not make you a monster." "I killed people, innocent people, people who were just trying to protect their homes, like my people tried to protect ours. And you carry that pain with you every day. A monster would not feel that pain. A monster would not care." Looked at her. His golden eyes were bright with emotion. "How can you say that? How can you look at me and not see the blood on my hands?" Reached across the table and took his hand. His skin was and rough against her soft brown fingers. "I see a man who was broken by war. I see a man who is looking for another way to live. That is not a monster, that is someone who is trying to heal. They sat in silence for a long time, their hands still touching on the table. Later that night showed her the medal. It was a circle of black metal about the size of her palm. Silver stars were etched into its surface, forming a pattern she did not recognize. It was old, worn smooth by years of handling. This is the highest honor of the hegemony, said. It is given to soldiers who show great valor in battle. I received it after a battle on a world called Seven. My entire unit was killed. I was the only survivor. I held the line alone for 3 days until reinforcements arrived. Turned the medal over in her hands. It was cold and heavy. It is beautiful. It means nothing. His voice was bitter. I held the line, I survived, but my friends, my brothers, they all died. For what? For a piece of metal, for an empire that does not care about us. Then why do you keep it? Was quiet. He took the medal back and held it in his palm, staring at the silver stars. I do not know, he admitted. Perhaps because it is all I have left. Perhaps because I hope that one day it will mean something different, something better. Put her hand on his arm. Then make it mean something different. You are not a soldier of the hegemony anymore. You are free. You can choose what this medal means to you. He looked at her, this small human woman who had saved his life. She was not strong like a warrior. She was not powerful like a commander. But there was something in her, something hard and bright and unbreakable that he had never seen in any soldier. You are wise, he said. She smiled. No, I just know that the past does not have to control us. We can choose who we want to be. Every day we can choose again. Held the medal tightly in his hand. For the first time in many years, he felt something that he had almost forgotten. Hoping. Maybe he could be something more than a soldier. Maybe he could find another purpose, another way to live. Maybe, with help, he could finally learn to be free. The warning came without sound. Sat up suddenly in the middle of the night, his 3 golden eyes wide and alert. Woke to find him standing at the window, looking out at the dark forest. What is wrong? She asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. They are here. The words were cold and hard, felt a chill run down her spine. She did not need to ask who they were. She already knew. How many? 3, maybe 4. They landed in the forest near where I crashed. Turned to look at her. His face was calm, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself, fear for her. You need to leave, you need to run. Take your truck and drive down the mountain. Do not stop. Do not look back. Stood up, she was wearing old pajamas, and her hair was messy from sleep. She looked small and soft and completely harmless. No, she said. You do not understand. These are hunters. They are trained to find and kill targets like me. If they find you with me, they will kill you too. Then we will fight them together. Stared at her. You cannot fight them. You are human. You are. I am what? Interrupted. Her voice was steady, but there was fire in her eyes. I am weak. I am helpless. I saved your life. I dragged you out of a burning ship and kept you alive for weeks. Do not tell me what I can and cannot do. For a moment did not know what to say. Then slowly a small smile crossed his face. It was the first time she had ever seen him smile. You are stubborn, he said. Yes, I am. Picked up his weapon from the table. It was a long black gun that had never seen him use. He checked it quickly, making sure it was ready. Then we fight, he said, but we fight smart. These hunters are trained for open combat. They expect their targets to run or to stand and fight directly. They do not expect tricks. They do not expect traps. Nodded, I know this land. Every tree, every hill, every path, they do not. Good, that is our advantage. We make them come to us, and we make them pay for every step. They worked quickly, showed the paths through the forest, the places where the ground was soft and easy to fall through, the trees that were old and ready to fall with a little push. They set traps using wire and wood and heavy stones. They created false trails that led to dead ends and dangerous cliffs. Then they waited. The hunters came at dawn, 3 of them just as had said. They were tall and but their faces were covered by black masks. They moved through the forest silently, their weapons raised and ready. Watched them from a hiding spot in the trees. Was beside him, holding her grandfather's old rifle. She was shaking, but her hands were steady on the gun. "Stay here," whispered. "Only shoot if they see you, otherwise stay hidden." "Be careful." Touched her shoulder briefly. Then he was gone, moving through the trees like a shadow. The first hunter walked into a trap. The ground beneath him gave way, and he fell into a pit lined with sharp stakes. He screamed, a terrible sound that echoed through the forest. The other 2 hunters stopped, suddenly alert. Hit them from the side. He was still weak, still healing, but he was also a soldier with 100 years of training. He moved fast, faster than thought possible. His weapon fired beams of bright blue light that cut through the air like lightning. 1 hunter fell. The other turned and fired back, dodged but not fast enough. A bolt of energy hit his shoulder and he went down with a cry of pain. The last hunter walked toward him slowly, weapon raised. Tried to move, but his body would not obey. His shoulder was burning and his vision was going dark at the edges. "Deserter," the hunter said. His voice was cold and mechanical through the mask. "You ran from the hegemony. You thought you could hide on this primitive world. You were wrong." He raised his weapon to fire. A shot rang out. Not a beam of energy, but the sharp crack of an old rifle. The hunter stumbled. He looked down at his chest, where a hole had appeared in his armor. Human weapons were not supposed to work against hegemony armor, but had aimed for the weak point, the spot where the neck met the shoulder, where the armor was thinnest. The hunter turned toward her. His golden eyes were wide with surprise. Fired again. This time the hunter fell. The forest was quiet, lowered the rifle, her hands shaking now. She ran falling to her knees beside him. "Are you okay?" He opened his eyes slowly. His golden gaze found her face. "You shot him," he said. His voice was weak but full of wonder. "You actually shot him. I told you not to underestimate me." Laughed. It was a broken, painful sound, but it was still a laugh. "I will never make that mistake again." Helped him sit up. His shoulder was badly burned, but the wound was not deadly. She would need to treat it, but he would survive. "How did you know where to aim?" asked. "The weak point in the armor. Even most soldiers do not know about it." Looked at the fallen hunter. "I watched you repair your armor last week. I saw where the plates connect. I remembered." Stared at her. His eyes were bright with something new, something she had never seen in them before. Respect. Deep, genuine respect. "You are terrifying," he said. Despite everything, laughed. "I am a veterinarian from Provence. You should see what happens when a cow gets loose." Laughed again, and this time it did not sound so painful. They sat there in the quiet forest, surrounded by fallen enemies and smoking trees, laughing together like old friends. They had won. Against all odds they had won. But as helped back to the house, she knew that this was not the end. The hegemony would send more hunters. They would keep coming until was dead or captured. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Later, as she bandaged shoulder, she looked at his face and saw the same thought in his eyes. He knew what was coming. He knew what he would have to do. But for now, in this moment, they were safe. They were alive, and they were together. For now, that was enough. The weeks after the battle were busy ones. Spent his days in the forest, working on the wreckage of his ship. He stripped parts from the hunter's vessel and combined them with his own broken technology. Helped when she could, handing him tools, holding wires, listening as he explained what he was doing. She did not understand most of it. The technology was hundreds of years beyond anything on Earth, but she understood that he was building something that could fly. something that could take him away. She did not ask about it. She did not want to think about it. Instead, she focused on the present. She cooked meals and changed bandages and sat with him on the porch in the evenings, watching the stars come out one by one. They talked about many things during those evenings, told her about the worlds he had seen, planets with purple skies and oceans of liquid gold and forests that sang when the wind blew through them. Told him about her childhood, about her grandmother, about the dreams she used to have of traveling the world. "You wanted to travel," said one night, "but you stayed here. Why?" Looked out at the mountains. The moon was bright, painting everything in silver light. "My grandmother needed me, and after she died I did not want to leave. This place is part of me. These mountains, this forest, this house, I could not leave them behind." "Do you regret it?" Thought about the question. She thought about all the places she had never seen, all the adventures she had never had. Then she thought about the sick animals she had healed, the grateful farmers who brought her gifts of vegetables and eggs, the quiet peace of morning tea on the porch. "No," she said, "I do not regret it. I found my purpose here. That is more than most people ever find." Nodded slowly. He understood. He had spent his whole life fighting for a purpose that was given to him by others. He had never chosen his own path. He had never asked himself what he truly wanted. Until now. 1 month after the battle, the ship was ready. It sat in a clearing in the forest, small and ugly and patched together from a dozen different pieces. But it worked. Had tested the engines and they had fired cleanly. He could leave. That evening, found on the porch. She was holding a cup of tea, but she was not drinking it. She was just staring at the sky. "The ship is ready," he said. "I know." He sat down beside her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. "The hegemony will send more hunters," said finally. "They will not stop. As long as I am here, you are in danger." "I know. I have to leave. I have to lead them away from this planet, from you." His hands tightened around her cup. "I know," she said again, but her voice was not steady this time. "Come with me," said suddenly. The words came out before he could stop them. "There are worlds out there, beautiful worlds, worlds where you could start again. You could see all the things you dreamed of seeing when you were young. You could." "No." The word was quiet but firm. Turned to look at him. Her eyes were bright with tears, but she was not crying. "This planet is my home," she said. "These people are my people. I cannot leave them. I cannot leave her." She looked at the house and understood. Her grandmother. This place was where her grandmother had lived and died. This was where roots were planted deep in the earth. She could not pull them up, no matter how much she might want to. "Then I will come back," said. "When the war is over, when it is safe, I will come back for you." Smiled sadly. "That is a long time to wait." "I know, but I will wait, and so will you." He reached into his armor and pulled out the metal. The black metal gleamed in the moonlight. The silver stars shone like tiny suns. "Take this," he said, pressing it into her hand. Looked at the metal, then at him. "This is your highest honor. I cannot." "You can, you will." He closed her fingers around the metal. "In the hegemony, this is given to those who show great valor in battle. But I have learned something here on this planet from you. True valor is not about fighting. It is not about killing or surviving or winning wars." His golden eyes met hers. They were bright and fierce and full of emotion. "True valor is choosing compassion when cruelty is easier. It is helping a stranger who should have died. It is showing kindness without expecting anything in return. You taught me that. You saved my life in more ways than one." Tears fell now, sliding down her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. "You are the bravest soldier I have ever known," said, "and I am honored to have fought beside you." He stood up. The ship was waiting. The stars were calling. He had to go. Stood up too. She looked at him, this tall alien with 3 golden eyes, this soldier who had learned to smile, this friend who had come from the stars and changed her life forever. "Be safe," she said. "I will try. Come back to me." "I will." He touched her face gently, his fingers brushing away her tears. Then he turned and walked toward the forest, toward the ship, toward the sky. Watched him go. She watched the ship rise into the air, its engines glowing blue in the darkness. She watched it climb higher and higher until it was just a point of light among the stars. Then it was gone. She stood on the porch for a long time, holding the metal against her heart. The night was cold and the wind was rising, but she did not go inside. Somewhere out there, among the stars, a war was being fought. A war that had destroyed worlds and killed millions. A war that seemed impossible to win. But was out there now, and he was not the same soldier he had been before. He had learned a new way to fight, a new way to live, a way based on compassion instead of cruelty, on hope instead of despair. Years passed, grew older. Her hair turned and her hands became wrinkled, but she never forgot. She never forgot the nights on the porch, the stories about distant worlds, the strange and wonderful friendship they had shared. And then one day, the sky filled with ships. They were not hegemony ships. They were different, smaller and brighter, with symbols that had never seen before. They landed in the fields around her farm, and beings of all shapes and colors emerged. One of them approached her. It was tall and blue, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. "You are," it asked. "Yes. We are the Coalition of Free Systems. We have come to thank you." Did not understand. Thank me for what? For saving him, for teaching him, built our coalition. He brought together the scattered peoples of 100 worlds. He taught us to fight with hope instead of hatred. He said he learned that from a human woman on a small blue planet. The being bowed its head. "Because of you, the hegemony has fallen. The war is over. Billions of lives have been saved." His hand went to the medal hanging around her neck. She had worn it every day for 20 years. She had never taken it off. "Where is," she asked, "is he alive?" The being smiled. "He is alive, he is coming." And then she saw him. He was older too, his skin lined with age, his golden eyes dimmer than she remembered. But he was still tall. He was still strong. He was still. He walked toward her slowly, across the field where she had dragged him so many years ago. He stopped in front of her and looked at the medal around her neck. "You kept it," he said. "Of course I kept it. You asked me to wait, so I waited." Smiled. It was the same smile she remembered, the one she had first seen on the night they fought the hunters together. "I came back," he said, "just like I promised." Smiled too. And then she hugged him, this alien soldier who had become her friend, who had changed the galaxy with a lesson he had learned on a small farm in the mountains. They stood there for a long time, holding each other, while the ships gleamed in the sun and the people of 100 worlds watched in wonder. And in the histories of the galaxy, written on 1,000 planets in 1,000 languages, her name was remembered forever. The healer of the fallen star, the woman who changed the course of a war by saving one life. The bravest soldier the universe had ever known.